Sorry about that, guys. The video cut off. But I'm back again. And also too, I was told about how I was talking too loud, so I'm gonna quiet down, but still finish my video. So, anyways, I was going through the checklist, and when I got to the part that said that I would need four 2x2 photos, so basically, headshots, right, for my file or my pre-employment package, I started to have a reaction. And the reason being is that, first of all, you know that you're being watched 24/7, as I said, right? They're constantly throwing stimuli at you in this program, right? Programming you, right? And also perpetuating the false narrative, right? And so anything that I've talked about, they've turned it around and made it seem like I was doing it. So I brought up the example in my last clip before the video got cut off, and that part of the video got cut out, actually. So I'm going to say it again. If you check out my the programming and gaslighting of the, or I think it's the gaslighting and programming of the targeted individual part 2 video, you'll hear me talking about how they program you with stimuli, constantly throwing stimuli at you, right? With their shadow networking software in any video you watch, any app that you're on, any technological device that you're on, whether it's a phone, computer, TV, radio, any technological device you're on, they are throwing stimuli at you with their shadow networking software. When it comes to the radio, that's not shadow networking. Literally, all of the major organizations are involved when you're targeted. But specifically when you're home, right? And you're watching TV or you're on your phone looking at YouTube or Hulu or Netflix, they literally have software. It's called shadow networking software. I talked about this in my pertinent information part 1 video. And I got that information from Michael Barden's video, who was a prior military. I'm not sure what his position was, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, but he used to be in the military. So he's familiar with all of these things, and he's now targeted, right? So he was talking about that software that they have. And I already suspected that, in my prior videos from months prior. For those of you that have been following me, I'm sure you guys have heard me talking about targeting through the TV. I even shared videos from Truth Hurts Hypocrisy America, another targets page, where he was showing how they were targeting him through the TV and showing the subliminal messaging in some of the shows he was watching. Because you'll feel crazy if you don't know that this software exists. You might have the idea that it exists and you know that something isn't right, but they can successfully gaslight you into thinking you're crazy if you're not actually familiar with the terminology and the actual tactics used, such as the shadow networking AI software that they have. That's an actual thing. So when you have the terminology and you can actually look up and see things and print it out and hold it in your hand and have tangible evidence that, yo, this is something that really exists, I'm not crazy. When you can do that, it helps to counteract the program and it helps to legitimize your feelings and your experience, right? So when they're constantly throwing stimuli with you, perpetuating this false narrative, programming you, right? And then making noises in the background and watching you for a reaction, of course you're going to be anxious. And then they would try to paint your anxious reaction as guilt when it's PTSD and trauma. But that's how the program works. It's very effective. It's an effective program. And this is why I made sure to point out that before I left Island, before my targeting blew up, before any of these new allegations were on me, these are completely new and just things that they actually took that I said. And this is why I said, be careful with the things you say, because they take it and they turn it into ammo and they warp it and create false narratives. I talked about this in depth in my pertinent information about the targeted individual program. And then in the videos that followed, when I talked about the gaslighting and programming of the targeted individual, it's a very effective program. And it's actually been adapted. It's an adaptation of the Nazi Stasi government German policing program. This was something that was used years ago. The Nazis used it. And they hired a Nazi general. I forgot what his name was, something Wolf. This was mentioned in my most recent video, the one prior to this one, where I provided irrefutable proof that gang stalking is real. Towards the end of the video, the clip that I was showing from Tony, another target, he was talking about this program that the US has adapted. That was a Nazi program. And they even hired a Nazi, I believe, general. His name was something Wolf. And this is why the program is so efficient. It's been around for years. It's been perfected. They have technology that they utilize to help propel it. So understand that if you feel crazy, or if you feel persecuted, or if you feel like you're, going crazy from these false narratives that they paint with the program, that's not just you. They don't just do any target. They do this to all targets. Check out my video, my last video, not the last one, the one prior to the irrefutable proof that gang stalking is real. The part 3, the gaslighting and programming of the targeted individual video. Check that video out, where I'm literally showing y'all evidence. I showed y'all a military document from a target in India that was talking about the same thing happening to him, where these projections and false narratives and social engineering is being utilized on him to paint these false narratives. That's how this program works. It's very scary and it's very efficient. So anyways, your reactions aren't crazy. Your reactions are normal and human. And so just understand that. And the more that you're able to talk about it, and the more that you're able to provide evidence to validate what you're saying, the more you heal yourself and the less reactive you become to what's being done, because you start to feel at ease. Like, okay, I'm not crazy. My reactions are normal. And this is a part of the program. And you start to feel at ease and you have these reactions less and less. That's why today in the police station, typically I would have been, all when my fingerprints was getting done, my body would have been trembling. I would have been acting a hot mess. It wasn't happening. Although inside I felt extremely uncomfortable, my body wasn't shaking. That's amazing, right? So I'm getting better, but I'm still having these reactions ever so often. Anyway, so back to fast forward after dealing with the fingerprints and stuff and getting back home now, and I'm going through the checklist. I got to the word photograph, and I started to have that reaction. I haven't had that reaction as much recently. Like I said, I'm getting so good at dealing with certain stimuli and not having the reaction, knowing that they're staring at you, right? And knowing that they've already projected certain stimuli on you and sensitized you to certain stimuli. I don't have the reaction as much anymore, but it does still happen ever so often. So I'm going to give you an example of how it happened once today and then didn't happen the second time, right? So I was in the living room and I got to the word photograph and I'm already feeling awkward sitting out there. Well, I already explained to y'all, right, that this new neighborhood that I moved to is a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? The gang stalking is more invasive, right? Because the houses are closer together. It's not like the old neighborhood. It was like bittersweet for me moving from that old neighborhood, because although it felt better leaving that neighborhood, knowing that, that guy, I don't want to bring him up, right? But knowing that that person's family lived in that neighborhood and it felt uncomfortable for me, although it felt good leaving because of that, it was still bittersweet because that house was more comfortable as a target. It was a 2-story house. The houses were further apart, so it was just like you didn't feel like the gang stalkers were on top of you, like literally. In this neighborhood, the houses are super close together and, so it's just like the gang stalking feels way more invasive, it's just way more torturous. This neighbor, I'm just being real. It's just way more torturous in this neighborhood. So anyways, forgot what I was going to say. And mind you, I grew up in this neighborhood, basically, you could say. Literally, I lived on the other side of this neighborhood for a number of years with my family in different houses. And then also this house, my grandfather's house, I came here many years in my life, in my childhood and my younger years. No issues, when life was normal. But now it's like, this is why I didn't even want to come to this house. I remember when the people in my close circle told me we were moving to this house, like my heart literally dropped, because I was like, I don't want the memories that I have in this house to change. And I knew it was going to warp into this new gang stalking reality of mine. I was like, oh my God, it's going to ruin my memories in this house. But literally, that's what it is. It's like a nightmare living in this house with the gang stalking and being targeted. So anyways, I went off on a tangent. So anyways, sitting in that living room feels uncomfortable for me. I literally don't go out there unless I'm working out, because when you're working out, you're in the zone, right? So it's like you're not focusing on the gang stalking and what's going on, but to sit out there in the living room with just feeling like all the eyes are on you and just knowing the houses are so close together and the way it feels, and then also having to interact with the people in your close circle and things feel uncomfortable, it's just like I don't go out there unless I'm working out. So I'm sitting out there on the couch in close proximity with this person in my close circle. I say the photo stimuli and I got awkward. I felt the awkwardness happen, and then I heard a little rev in the neighborhood. I was like, damn, every time it happens, I want to beat myself, because I know they fly and they try to take that and they use it to try and say it's indicative of guilt, when it's nothing but PTSD, because they're staring at me and sensitizing me to stimuli 24/7, right? So when I have these reactions, I always want to just punch myself. I just feel so freaking disappointed when I have the reaction, because I'm getting so good at not having it anymore. but it still happens ever so often. So I remember the reaction happened earlier, and I want to explain the photo thing to y'all. So this is why I was bringing up, I think I went on a tangent. I was bringing up the other stimuli that had to do with this witchcraft bullshit. And really, all of this witchcraft talk started because of me, because I was saying that I felt like my roommate from back then did witchcraft on me. And so I was talking about in my full story why I felt that way. And I was talking about the correlation that I was seeing in some of the things I was experiencing to what happened to her within our friendship when we lived together. And so they took that the wrong way, like I was bearing false witness and like I was being a bitch for talking about that stuff. First of all, I never said my roommate's name, never posted her picture. And yes, I'm using the stimuli. Never posted her picture, nothing like that. Nobody should know who I'm talking about unless A, it's her, like she's living on island again. And I don't even think that girl lives on this island. But I mean, who knows? It's years later. Maybe she moved back home. I don't know. But unless she's living down here and privy to anyone down here is privy to my, shoot, I believe there are people that are from this island that aren't here anymore that are privy to my gang stalking and privy to these cameras on me. But regardless, the only people that should know who I'm talking about are the people in my close circle. And of course, her, if she's on this island, right? Or she's been notified about my gang stalking, whatever. I never put her name out there. I never said for sure, this girl did this. I said, I suspect because AYZ, ABC, right? I was just talking about my experience and why I felt like this was something spiritual going on. They took that and they warped it. They said I was bearing false witness. They started to create this false narrative like I did the witchcraft. They started tying together things that don't even tie together and making this weird, like creepy false narrative. And then when I saw how this program works and that they do that anyways, so it's not just because I bared false witness, they do that to all targets. It's called social engineering and soft warfare. Check out my pertinent information part 1 video, right? Michael Barden's talking about it. Remember, he was in the military. He's talking about the fact that they use the shadow networking to perpetuate false narratives and to social engineer and to change and warp your perception, the target's perception, and also others' perception of the target. It's a very effective program. And then, of course, you're feeling persecuted. You're being stared at 24/7. They remind you constantly that they're watching you, and you have a nervous reaction, and they try to paint it as guilt. There was another target I followed that was actually talking about that. I wish I had saved his video. He was Caucasian. I'm bringing that up for a reason, because I've talked about this in several of my videos. When I was in Florida, I shared some extremely offensive content about Caucasian people out of anger and reaction to what happened to me in Indiana. I'm not saying that it's acceptable. I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just giving y'all the real, that's where it was coming from. I shared some really offensive content about Caucasian people. And so oftentimes they can turn Caucasian targets against me, right? And so this guy was Caucasian, and obviously they turned him against me because I remember him and I were talking under a video. He came under my video. I guess he found one of my videos. And then I saw his video. I found his video where he was talking about the same thing I'm going through, right? Where he was talking about the fact that they said he was a liar. He looked guilty because he kept blinking. That's what was happening to him because they're staring at him 24/7. The poor man looked like he was freaking trying so hard not to blink. The poor man's face, I just knew how he felt. I was like, this poor man, right? And for him, it was blinking. They said he kept blinking. And he looked that same kind of feeling. I feel like, you're being watched. And so you start to think about how you need to react, and you're trying to act normal makes you act unnormal. It's the weirdest thing that happens. And so this is why I had to reprogram my brain from the programming they did and train myself to just relax and realize that it's just normal. I'm laying in my room. Who cares if they're watching me or not? Just relax. This is how I had to train myself and actually deprogram from the programming they were doing to me. Anyway, so that target, after a while, I noticed he stopped answering me completely. And I know why. Obviously, they reached out to him and turned him against me. Just because of stupid offensive shit I shared in my car in Florida. So I didn't even fault him, really and truly. All I could do was say, please watch my story. They turn people against me, and I don't know if he ever did watch it. Because I have quite a few subscribers, and even targets that were talking to me that stopped responding, I don't know that they unsubscribe. I think some of them stay subscribed and they just might stop talking to me, because of whatever the gang stalker tells them. It might make them feel offended enough to not want to interact with me, but they might still follow me, or they're fear-mongered into not reacting with me anymore. I don't really know how it works. I don't know what's being said to them. I'm sure they're being sent recordings of me saying offensive shit. And I don't really know what else from there. But I definitely, anyone Caucasian that turns against me, I don't blame them at all. I really don't. It's really just to be expected at this point. Right? So anyways, I forgot what I was saying though. Where was I? So this is what happens to me. It's just like this reaction because they make things stimuli. And so in that part two, because I keep going off on a tangent and not really, let me rein it back in. So that part two, the programming, the gaslighting and programming of the targeted individual, I was talking about the nakedness stimuli and the fact that they made that stimuli for me as well. And I was having the same anxious reaction for that as well. And I was telling the truth about that as well, right? So basically, with my witchcraft book that I downloaded, the Return to Sender book, where I was contemplating doing a return to sender, where basically what that is that it's like a white magic spell that you do to take witchcraft off of you. So it's not magic to hurt anyone. It's not black magic, but it is still magic. I didn't do it. I read the book and I deleted it. When I saw in the beginning of the book that it said you could put something on yourself by accident, when you deal with that stuff and you don't know what you're doing, I said hell to the no, and I deleted the book. My biggest mistake was letting my curiosity get the best of me and reading the whole thing. But it was more than curiosity, and I was real about this in one of my recent videos. I was actually truly contemplating doing one of those things because I truly believed that something was on me. So it was out of consideration as well as curiosity. But what she said in the beginning of that book scared me enough to make me not do anything. So I read the book and I deleted it. But I still saw what I saw in that book. You know, I saw a lot of scary shit in that book and I talked about it. And the things that I talked about. So I talked about it. And the things that I talked about, basically, the things that I talked about basically got turned around and projected on me, right? So everything that I talked about, just like what I shared in my part one pertinent information about the targeted individual program, where I shared Lonetta's video, the other target, and she was talking about be careful what you say because this is a computer simulation and anything you say basically gets thrown back at you. That ties in with what Michael Barden said about soft warfare and how they use social engineering via their shadow networking AI software, their external noise campaigns, and all of the other tactics used. All of these things create social engineering. So your brain is being programmed from the constant stimuli being presented and the noise campaigns, right? And they can successfully social engineer and create a false narrative if you're not careful and you're not cognizant of what's happening. So that's why I make these videos. Whenever I have these reactions, I instantly make these videos so that I can knock down the false narrative that I know is brewing, right? It's already there anyways. So the the anxious reaction just helps to perpetuate it. Even though it's a human reaction to what's happening to me, I still have to make these videos for my protection. So anyways, with the naked thing, they started making that stimuli as well. And that was something that I actually didn't get from the witchcraft book. I'm going to get back to the witchcraft book in a minute. The naked thing I actually got from this girl named, I don't mean to keep calling the girl's name because my targeting is viral and I'm sure she doesn't want all this traction to her page, right? But this girl named Nikisha Wise that basically is a witchcraft victim. A few months ago, like 10 months ago, I was constantly on her page writing her and telling her that I felt like witchcraft was on me. I was emailing her, desperately pleading for help from her because I felt like something was on me with all of the things that I experienced in the States when I tried to relocate off this island. And so I remembered under one of her videos with this girl named Shankila Robinson, who was killed on camera. You know, went away, I guess, like to some foreign country with her friends. And she ended up getting killed on camera and she was half naked. And it was a humiliating death. And so I remembered her talking about in that video that she wouldn't be surprised if witchcraft was on this girl, because that's a big sign of witchcraft, something about nakedness and humiliation. And so underneath her video, thank God I commented, because in one of my prior videos, I don't remember which video it was, I was talking about one of the things that I saw was a sign of witchcraft. I was just basically talking about why I thought witchcraft was on me and the different signs of witchcraft that I had learned about. And I said one of the things that I learned about was nakedness and humiliation. They started making nakedness stimuli for me. And not stupid me, let me not gaslight myself, but I was having that same anxious reaction that I'm having to photos, the word photo now, right? So thank God, thank Yahweh, thank the Most High, I was able to find that video where I got that information from, and I commented under that video. And so I shared that receipt in my part two, gaslighting and programming of the targeted individual video. I shared that receipt where I commented under that video talking about the fact that they were watching me naked in the bathroom and it was humiliating and that it had been an attack on my character for years. I commented under that video. I'm so grateful. 10 months ago. And so I was able to provide that receipt in my part 2 programming of the targeted individual and gaslighting of the targeted individual. So I was able to knock that stimuli down. The photograph one I have not, and you know what, actually, I think I will go out of my way to find that video. I need to find that video where I saw that information. I'm pretty sure it was on Nikisha Wise's page as well. This is where I was learning most of my witchcraft information from, but not just her. I was on so many different people's pages looking at witchcraft videos like a dummy. I was looking up all these different witchcraft videos on different people's pages, not just Nikisha Wise. All these different people's pages looking up witchcraft information, how to know if you have it on you. And so I remembered, I think it was her page where she was saying that they used, I'm pretty sure it was her page. I'm going to go on her page and look again to see if I find that video. You know, I've just been wary about watching witchcraft videos now. I've been so paranoid because of what they've done and how they turned the narrative and painted it like it was me doing the witchcraft. I've been so anxious about it, especially when things started to physically happen to my body a few months ago. They literally fear-mongered me into not watching those videos anymore. I stopped watching those videos completely. But before I was watching them so much, and I believe it was Nikisha Wise's page, if I'm not mistaken, where I saw that they use photographs sometimes to do witchcraft. So in one of my prior videos, I don't remember which one it was. I think it was the same video where I was talking about the nakedness. I also talked about photographs and the fact that they use photographs sometimes to do why would I talk if that was something I did? Let's use our brain. Again, this is kind of like the Walmart situation. Why am I going to call you over to help me do a stealing transaction? If I were harming, right, the people in my close circle, right? Why am I going to text you and let you know that it's happening? Why? I'm not stupid. Let's not insult me. I may be a lot of things, but I'm not stupid. I'm not going to tell on myself continuously. Who's that stupid? Right? If I did that, right, Yah forbid, and used the photographs or whatever, however they tried to paint the narrative, everything I talked about, they tried to twist it. Why the hell would I talk about it in a video? Who would be that stupid? It's like they're actually insulting my intelligence with the false narratives that they're perpetuating. Anyway, so in that same video where I think I talked about the nakedness, in that video, I also mentioned photographs because I was talking about the fact that I was such a flaunty person and that on my Facebook, I kept flaunting the things that I had and I was flaunting the fact that I was doing this job and that job and I was graduating magna cum laude and this and that. And I said I should have never been flaunty because I heard that they use pictures to do witchcraft on you. I said that in my video and oh my God, they started making picture stimuli for me. So every time they're in these movies, these creepy movies that they're throwing at me, they're throwing movies at me about people doing witchcraft and using pictures and creepy shit, everything that I said, basically. And so I even felt the need to download that witchcraft book again. I did this a few months ago and go in that book and show some of the things that I saw. I didn't see anything about photographs, but what I did see was things about bodies of water and mirrors. And that's something they made stimuli as well, because I talked about that in my videos as well, what I read in that book about how they were saying, because I was saying if I had done a spell, I said, first of all, you would have had to have done a ritual. So I was saying basically it's not just reading a spell because they tried to make it like I was doing this chanting thing. This is literally what somebody in my close circle said. She said she thinks I'm saying evil prayers against the people in my family. And I said, first of all, if that were the case, don't you think I would have had to have done a ritual too? As far as I know, I don't really know about witchcraft, just so y'all know, guys. I was doing research because I felt like it was on me. I don't know jack shit about witchcraft. I've never done it in my life, and I'll put my hand on the Bible and swear that. And the most I could strike me dead if I'm lying. I don't lie about stuff like that. You know what? Let me rephrase that. I might have done it unintentionally. So basically, when I owned the tourmaline and the obsidian crystals before I left Ireland, and I purchased those for protection because I felt like something was on me, from reading that witchcraft book, what I see, that's a form of white magic. So I might have done white magic in that moment. I've already confessed that. When I read the Return to Sender book, although I didn't do any of the rituals, just reading that book alone might have been me doing white magic. I've already confessed that. But I've never intentionally done witchcraft and I've never done black magic. Never. And that's something I put my hand on the Bible and swear. I wouldn't play with that. So for me, it's just like crazy how they kind of turned the warped the narrative and made it seem like I was doing it. First of all, before I left Ireland, that wasn't on me, that accusation. The only accusation was the text message thing. Nothing was what it is now. Nothing was as bad as it is now until I tried to relocate off island and I pissed off certain people, right? With the Hebrew Israelite propaganda that I shared in my car in Florida. You think I was doing witchcraft? I would be sharing Hebrew Israelite Bible type stuff in my car? Does that even make sense? I was sitting there sharing Bible videos and offending a lot of people with the type of Bible videos I was sharing. And I pissed off some powerful people in my car in Florida. I shared offensive shit about America. I shared offensive shit about Jewish people. I shared offensive shit about Caucasian people. I shared offensive shit about Asian people. I was on a roll in my car in Florida in reaction to what had happened to me. And so I pissed off and got the attention of some powerful people. And that's where the shadow networking and the false narratives and the social engineering and the framing of Sharifa really started. It started before then. From the text message, what they painted from that text message was ridiculous. But when what really started the real serious accusations and the painting of false narratives and constantly painting these weird false narratives and using their technology to do it, that started after I left Florida. After I shared the stuff I shared in my car and I pissed off some powerful people. That's what started that, just so you know. Anyway, back to what I'm saying. So the photograph thing became stimuli because I talked about it, just like what Lornetta said. She said it's a computer simulation, literally, because everything is technology. You know, they have bird drones outside, insect drones inside, surveilling you, right? Military MAVs, micro air vehicles, right? So the nano mosquitoes and gnats and stuff they have that look like real gnats and mosquitoes and stuff because they are using real insects, but they're drones with cameras, microphones, and syringes on them. They're using these technological devices. Then they have their AI software generator, right? The shadow networking software, where they're hacking all of your technological devices and sending you videos with subliminal messaging, programming you. Then you get in the car, you're dealing with the radio, another technological device where they're programming you further. At this point, this is a computer simulation. Everything is technology. And anything you say, right, can be used against you. And they can create false narratives with the things you say. And so I learned that a bit late. You know, I wish I had known that sooner. This is why I do these videos also to help other targets. But it's scary stuff. It's really scary what they can do with this technique. They can frame the heck out of a person if they want to. And I'm not trying to bear false witness or anything, but this is literally what I've been dealing with since coming back from trying to relocate off this island. Constantly in defense of myself after allegation after allegation after allegation after. It's one thing after the other. I don't know what they're going to come with next. I'm terrified to think of what they might come with next. It's scary. Anyway, so with the witchcraft thing, basically I had heard that they can use photographs to put witchcraft on you. Also the nakedness thing. I'm pretty sure the photograph thing came from the Nikisha's page. I'm almost certain that's where I got it from. So I really just need to look through her videos and see which video that was. But I'm not 100% sure. There were a bunch of witchcraft videos that I was watching back then. So it really could have came from anywhere, but it wouldn't be hard to find. It's really not hard to find. That info is out there. And so that's one of the things that I came across, as well as the nakedness thing. So when they tried to use the nakedness stimuli and paint it like I was doing it, and I started having the anxious reaction, and they started going more ham on me like I really did it because I was acting anxious at the stimuli, I was so grateful when I found that receipt on Nikisha's page showing the video where she talked about it and where I commented underneath sharing my experience. That was 10 months ago where I wrote that comment. So I was so grateful that I found that. So I need to do that for the photograph thing as well, so I can knock it down once and for all. And then maybe I won't have those reactions anymore. Because the nakedness thing, right now I could see that and not have a reaction. But the photograph thing, every now and then I do have a reaction. Not always. You know, this is why I wanted to talk about the fact that it happened once today, but then the second time it didn't happen. So in the living room, I had the reaction because after I mentioned that thing about basically being a flaunty person and the fact that I kept flaunting my stuff on Facebook and I should have never done that. I should have deleted my Facebook, and that I felt like somebody might have used my picture. Then they tried to, with their soft warfare, shadow networking AI software, started to project the false narrative that that's what I did, and I'm literally sending me subliminal messaging in the videos constantly about photographs and people using photographs and just weird witchcraft stuff. And of course, I'm acting anxious as usual with all the stuff that they make stimuli. They make everything stimuli. They've sensitized me to almost damn near everything. This program is so effective that I would act nervous and anxious. And then, of course, they would use that as being indicative of guilt when it's just PTSD and trauma. And knowing all these people hate me and are staring at me and constantly persecuting me and making noise campaigns. And so I'm acting anxious. I was just like, my God, what are they going to make into stimuli next? But anyway, so with that, it's really not been that bad. With the picture thing, I talked about it in one of my prior videos, and then I was okay, and I actually hadn't had the reaction in a while. But today in the living room, I had the reaction when I was going through the checklist and I saw photographs. I had the reaction. It made me, it literally, like programming in the brain, it literally just caused like a psychological tick. And I felt the awkwardness happen. I know they're staring at me. I can't forget with the constant noise campaigns. I was like, shit, when it happened. The moment it happened, I was like, shit, right? So it happened, and I was just pissed with myself, even though I know it's not my fault. It's this well-crafted program. But anyway, so we got in the car. I got over the moment, right? We got in the car. We had to the place. We were taking care of business, right? I had to print some stuff out. I had to get something notarized. We talked about the photographs again in the car. This time I didn't have the reaction. And I even heard somebody revving by a little bit, trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? It basically egg on a reaction, but there's a specific word I'm looking for. When I make these videos, my brain goes blank, guys. I actually have an expansive vocabulary, believe it or not. But I get very anxious when I'm making these videos. I'm constantly feeling judged, and they're constantly coming from my self-esteem. And so I'm constantly just like going blank when it comes to looking for words and saying the right thing and whatever. Trying to egg me into a reaction, basically, right? Trying to not insinuate, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my goodness. Trying to not instigate. Oh my, what is going on? Anyways, basically just trying to egg me into a reaction, right? You know how they do that? Like I told y'all, they'll watch you, right? Send you the stimuli constantly, and then make like a slight noise campaign in the background, just slight enough for you to hear it, but not super loud, so that you have the reaction, like the reminder, we're watching you, remember that stimuli? And then you have the reaction, you breathe funny or whatever, and then go vroom, and speed by. That's what they do. And then if you don't have the reaction, sometimes they get annoyed and they zoom by anyway, just to hope to get it, and they just don't get it, especially not nowadays. They're not getting the reaction as much from me. Anyway, so that was what was happening in the car when the picture thing was brought up again. I heard somebody revving by slightly trying to get the reaction, and I didn't happen. I was like, thank you, Yahweh. It did not happen in that moment. I was so glad. And several times in the car, we talked about the photos, and I didn't have the reaction to the stimuli. The other thing that happened, the other reaction that I felt embarrassed about, and I wanted to beat myself up about. And when it happens, it's like I go into a shell and I don't know how to because once it starts to happen, it's not, they're watching you, just waiting for you to have a reaction. It's like you're constantly on eggshells when you're in this program, because they have you freaking 24/7 on camera, watching you, constantly, like I said, programming you, providing you with the stimuli, right? Making the noise campaigns, external stimuli as well, right? Just waiting for a reaction, just waiting and wait for a reaction. That's what's happening. So you're constantly feeling anxious, right? So it's just like constantly like this war of eggshells where it's like, okay, I'm good for today, right? And then it's like you have a reaction like, damn, you feel like you went back 10 steps, back to the perpetuation of the false narrative and them having an upper hand in this false narrative they're trying to perpetuate and project on you. That's what it feels like. And so I'm just like, oh my God, another day of this bullshit. Like, it's like you can't get a break. It's like constantly you feel like you're at war and constantly on eggshells and constantly praying you don't have a bad reaction. It's the weirdest thing ever. And even though I'm getting better with the reactions, much better than how I was doing before, I still have the reactions sometimes. So the last thing that happened was basically, after dealing with everything we were dealing with, I encountered several people today, several situations where, like I said, I would have typically been trembling and having the reaction. I didn't have it, aside from that little photograph thing that happened in the living room. Then my mom decides that oh my God, I said my mom. I'm not supposed to be talking about family in this. Anyway, I'm not saying anything bad about her, that she did anything. So that's okay if I'm mentioning her. But I'm not supposed to mention family, friend, foe, cat, dog, lizard, mouse. I'm not supposed to mention relationships in my videos. So I make sure to say the person in my close circle. But in this moment, this is not anything that I'm saying negative about, at least not about this person, right? So it doesn't matter if I say my mom. It's okay. After we dealt with everything, right? My mom decides that she wants to stop in for pizza. So immediately my heart drops because I have a student that used to work in there. And I didn't mind before. Before I wasn't having the interactions and the awkward moments, those awkward, like I said, before I left this island, I was hugging my students. So although I was uncomfortable with being surveilled and being a new teacher, It wasn't this trembling thing where I'm around females or kids or students and I'm feeling like my body's trembling and because I know they're staring at me and this false obscene thing is floating in the air. I'm not having that. I wasn't having that reaction before I left this island. It wasn't until all the shit that happened in Florida and in the States happened, and I came back and my targeting changed for the worse, that my body started doing that weird reaction and, new stimuli with them purposely like making females come on top of me and kids and just weird stuff, that just causes these weird reactions out of me. And so I used to, whenever I would go for pizza in this place, not have a problem about it at all. I had a student that worked in there, a young man, and it wasn't awkward for me at all. Would have just good repertoire with him, make a little few jokes and I leave up out of there. No big deal, no awkward action, nothing like that, right? So when my mom went to turn it there, I kind of felt anxious. But I was like, well, I'm getting back out there. It's better that I push myself out there and I act normal as possible. So what better than to go in and have an interaction with a student and force myself to be normal is how I felt. Right? But I'm not going to lie. When I went in there and didn't see the student, I felt relief. I was so glad he wasn't in there. I was so glad he wasn't in there. But then I saw a young lady working in there that looked like another student I used to have. And I know she wasn't my student. I could tell that wasn't my student, but she looked so much like a student that I used to have. And I was already feeling anxious about the fact that my student works there. I don't even know if he still works there, but my student used to work in there, might still work there. I think he does still work there. I saw her, right? And I immediately got anxious, right? That anxious feeling that I had avoided all day. I had done good the whole freaking day. No reaction, right? Doing so freaking good the whole day. No matter what stimuli was, if it was stimuli, I don't want to bear false witness. Whatever was happening, I wasn't having that typical reaction that I have because I know they're staring at me and I know it's being perpetuated, right? But in this freaking store, I see this girl that looked like one of my prior students. So it wasn't the student that works in there, that actually works in there, that I was kind of feeling nervous about seeing, but it was somebody that resembled one of my prior students. And so when I saw her, I got weird. It's this weird thing that's starting to happen to me now. Even with someone in my close circle who still teaches at the school I used to teach at, when we go out in public and she sees her students, my body starts to get that weird reaction. I start to get really weird and awkward. You don't understand how embarrassing and traumatizing this whole situation has been for me. These reactions, again, I reiterate, were not happening before I left this island. So that's proof enough that it's not about guilt and it's about PTSD and trauma. Anyway, so it's this new thing that's happening whenever she sees her students, right? This person in my close circle, my body starts to tremble and I start to get that awkward, weird way, right? And like I said, I've been getting better because she even saw a student, I think it was just day before yesterday when we were in the hair store, and I heard them trying to rev outside to try and get a reaction out of me, and I didn't act nervous. My body didn't shake or anything. So I think that bothered them because then they sent this girl in there. Let me not bear false witness, but it seems to me it could have been a coincidence. Like they sent a young lady in there because they didn't get the reaction from the first young lady that my mom talked to. They sent another one in there to come in and get makeup and walk by me. She kept walking by me. I know what they do. It's like, you just know when they're doing what they're doing, right? So I purposely went to move away from her, right? And I acted like I was looking at some eyeliner. All of a sudden, she's on top of me looking at eyeliner. These are the things that they do to get a reaction out of you. While you know what they're doing, they're staring at you, and your body starts to tremble. And then they would try to run with that because they hate you and they want you to be guilty. That's literally what's going on right now. It's the worst predicament you can be in, is to be in the predicament I'm in, where everyone around you hates you and wants you to be guilty. And then they have the technology, the subliminal programming, and the external noise campaign and freaking stimuli to project their false narrative. So this is what's been going on with me. And this is why I make these videos, to protect myself, but also to knock down what's being done. Because the evidence is in the pudding. Before I left, I was actually teaching at the school and I was hugging my students and I was just shaking and having these weird reactions. The only weird reaction that I was having was feeling awkward, just teaching and knowing that the administrators are likely watching me and all these other people. That's what was making me angst, not the kids, not the students. I was even hugging my students. So now after I left Island and the stuff that happened to me happened, I'm traumatized. Like I said, when I see a girl or a child or a woman, doesn't have to be a girl, woman, I don't think, even an elderly woman, I'm ready to run. It makes my skin crawl. I'm ready to run because of this weird narrative they started to paint. So anyways, I saw that young lady in the pizza store and she looked like one of my students and I had the reaction. My body didn't really tremble that much. Thank goodness. Like I said, I'm getting better at that. So my body won't tremble as much as it would. Sometimes it does still. But recently I've noticed it's not been happening as much. But I did start to get that awkward look in my face in that kind of way where it's like, I can't really explain what happens. I just get really uncomfortable and awkward and like I'm ready to run. And so when I felt it happening, I got embarrassed and I sat down in the chair and I put my head down because it's like I know they're staring at me and I know what they do when they get that reaction. And so I felt not only embarrassed but drained, like, oh my God, here we go again. So I sat down, I put my head down, and I was just waiting for the person in my close circle to get the food so we could leave. She grabs the food and leaves and doesn't even tell me anything. And so I'm just sitting there with my head down, feeling stupid. And I hear the people behind the counter joking, like, yeah, that happens to me too. Sometimes I just nod off, just kind of like making a joke, but it was kind of like let me not bear false witness. It kind of felt like, of course, everyone's privy to my targeting. So I think they were just joking because I was having a bacity moment. That's what I think was really going on. But anyway, so I got up embarrassed and I went in the car and I just felt drained that interaction and that moment happened. And then while I'm in the car, right, and we're driving back to the house, all of a sudden another emergency vehicle is speeding through. I'm just like, oh my God, here we go again with them perpetuating the false narrative because I had a reaction. I'm like, and it's just trauma and PTSD. That's all this shit is. It's so freaking unfair. And it's like, you can't get away from it. They're watching you under a microscope 24/7, right? Programming you, sending you the stimuli 24/7, right? And then also externally programming you with the radio, with the noise campaigns, with the stimuli in person, then putting people to come stand up on top of you, certain people, and you're traumatized and you have the reaction and they perpetuate your targeting. It's the worst thing ever. This program is worse than jail. I'm going to tell you right now, this is worse than sitting in a jail cell. I'm going to tell you that right now. Not that I would know. I've never sat in a jail cell, but I could imagine that might be more peaceful than this program, to be quite real with you. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about that, guys. This video was way longer than I wanted it to be. But again, like I said, it's a mix of things. It's like a career update, not a total career update. Because like I said, I don't for sure have the job, but at least I'm in the next step of the hiring process. So I am kind of giving you a career update, but it's more so a vlog and documentation, again, for my protection. So that's what this is. It's just documentation and sharing my experience of what I experienced when I left the house today. It was a very lit and active day. I'm not going to say that, the ambulances and the fire truck and the police car and all that extra activity that was happening was for me. But I'm just letting you know all that was happening today while I was trying to take care of business for this job. I'm just letting you know now. And I did have 2 anxious reactions today, but still actually feeling good. It was a pretty good day because considering how I was acting before, the kind of anxious I was acting before, like all in that police station, I would have been trembling. The old me, while I was getting the fingerprints, my body would have been trembling. So I'm actually getting better despite what's happening and despite the fact that I'm still having reactions to certain things. Anyways, that's all I want to do. That's all I want to talk about, guys. It's like documentation, kind of a career update, kind of like a, I guess you could say event too. Not really event. It's not negative, but it's like, it is kind of event, like getting stuff off my chest. So that's what this video is. And thank you for tuning in, guys. It's probably longer than I want it to be, but I got to say what I wanted to say. So I will talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.